Christian imagery from the earliest centuries of the church reveals that Christ's early followers took his teachings to the heart. Neither political persecution, nor the disparity between diverse cultures, nor even the tension of doctrinal disputes could limit the spread of Christianity from its very beginning. Indeed, by 52, that is, the year 52, the Apostle Thomas had already reached Western India with the good news of Jesus. When he was martyred about 20 years later, the very culture that killed him would celebrate the sight of his grave, adorned by a tombstone, with a uniquely Indian rendering of the Hebrew saint. Such cross-cultural likeness are a hallmark of Christian depictions, from the clean-shaven, Apollo-esque Good Shepherd crowning a Roman catacomb fresco to a 15th century Ethiopian illumination of Saint Mark with pen and bookmaking tools in hand. The early church was missionable, flexible, and often underground, and prioritized above all maintaining a historical connection with Jesus. By the end of the first century, that is, by the end of the first 100 years, all of Christ's apostles had died. I believe the first century is the first 100 years. I might be mistaken. Most were martyred. While no early likeness of the apostles exists, Christians would portray their deaths for the next 2 millennia. A medieval manuscript features a compilation of apostolic martyrdoms. Below, a Russian church's 12th century fresco depicts Paul, considered an apostle because of his own encounter with Christ on the road to Damascus, moments before his own beheading at the hands of the Roman emperor. Peter considered himself unworthy to die the same way that Jesus did. Masaccio's painting of Peter's upside-down crucifix in 1426 includes a unique Renaissance experiment with realism in religious painting. The halo around Peter's head is foreshortened, submitted to the physical principles of perspective. The depictions of other apostolic martyrdoms here feature halos that are wholly spiritual, slid behind saintly heads and backgrounds. Clearly, Masaccio is thinking of the halo and perhaps Peter's sainthood not as intangible, but as physical. In the year 70, Roman general Titus crushed the first Jewish revolt. After seizing Jerusalem from the revolutionary government, Titus looted and burned the temple to symbolize the rebellion's failure, ending the final period of Jewish temple worship. 11 years later, Domitian erected the Arch of Titus to commemorate Roman victory over this provincial coup. The interior walls, which are still standing today, feature reliefs of Titus marching victoriously home and the desecration of the temple. It must have been shocking to first century Jews that all that remained of the liturgical instruments treasured and worshipped for hundreds of years, such as golden lampstand, first described to Moses for tabernacle use in Exodus 25, were their depictions on a monument of Roman military propaganda. And that this monument was not even in Jerusalem, but in pagan Rome. Writers like Justin Martyr and one of his 4th century manuscripts is pictured right here. Justin Martyr saw this desecration as a sign of God's rejection of Israel, an idea that would fuel Christian anti-Semitism for millennia. The sacking of Jerusalem forced the early church to continue extending the reach of the Gospels outside of Jesus' homeland. The Alexamenos graffito in 200th century Rome shows that Christianity endured not only waves of official persecution, but unofficial mockery as well. Discovered on a wall of the Patagogium, where royal slaves were trained, this image of a man at the foot of a cross bearing a donkey head figure is captioned in ancient Greek. Alexamenos worships God. Scholars think it likely that this earliest known visual rendering of a crucifixion was created to caricature the countercultural faith celebrating the ignominious death of Jesus Christ. If slaves like Alexamenos needed courage to endure the ridicule of fellow servants, thinkers like Justin Martyr needed it too. He presented his apologetic treatise defending his faith before the emperor, the Roman Senate, Greek and Jewish philosophers, and Roman magistrates. Can you spot these events in this 1995 icon of Justin Martyr in the middle left? No, we can't. While thinkers like Irenaeus also clarified doctrinal orthodoxy at the time, waves of official persecution drove churches in some cities literally underground. Even there, Christian culture flourished through catacomb paintings. So they had catacomb paintings. So far, we're reading a lot of insightful stuff, a lot of insight into early Christian history. The frontier town of Europus, named Dura, in the Roman era for the hardy Roman garrison stationed there, was first settled in 300 BC and remained a major stop on both east-west trade endeavors and Persian travel. Resting on the edge of the Euphrates River in modern-day Syria, it was a cultural crossroads. By the 3rd century AD, it contained Greek temples, mystery cults, a Jewish synagogue, and one of the earliest and best preserved house churches. With periodic waves of persecution sweeping the Roman world, house churches were central to Christian worship. Wealthy congregants hosted services within their walls, and sometimes, as we see in Dura Europos, even designated rooms exclusively for their congregations. From the main courtyard of this house, believers filed through a large doorway, then descended from one room into a lower chamber. So this would be the large doorway. Then they descended from one room into a lower chamber. This is the doorway going into the lower chamber. Here remains the earliest known baptistry. Equipped with a font big enough for full immersion, so you could get baptized. Over it is painted Christ as the Good Shepherd, redeeming Adam and Eve. And the adjacent walls illustrate the healing of the paralytic. You see the man on the bed. I think that's another man on the bed, but it's a man right here. And he picked up his bed and walked. Remember that story? And on the right, Jesus walking on water. We see, I bet that's Peter right there. That's probably Jesus right there. Or switched, whichever. But we see the apostles on the boat back there as well. Mary Magdalene at Christ's tomb and Old Testament scenes. Invaders destroyed the city in 256. But excavations by Yale University in the 1920s, right here, uncovered a vibrant center of Christian worship employing colorful images of biblical scenes. That is beautiful. It is beautiful. Because nowadays, inside of many churches, the walls are plain. In Protestant churches, that is, the walls be plain. Maybe have some glass stained windows, but the walls usually have no biblical images. And we usually have angels looking like regular people with wings. A new systematic persecution of Christians erupted in 250 under Roman Emperor Decius. To the right of his bust in the 240th century is one of the documents required from individuals to enforce pagan worship. A libellus, or little story, submitted to the government. This one certifies that an Egyptian woman and her daughter had made the proper Roman sacrifices and is signed by 3 witnesses. So 3 witnesses witnessed the Egyptian woman and her daughter making proper Roman sacrifices. And this is all a part of this right here. Individuals to enforce pagan worship. Because, if you got 3 people that witnessed you, then you basically got a stamp of approval. Oh, yeah, I saw them do it. Oh, yeah, I did too. Oh, yeah, I did too. So 3 people saw them. So that's obviously, something to believe. As illustrated by the man tracing a cross into the ground in the painting A Roman Holiday by Breton Riviere, the public deaths of Christians exposed the strength of the underground church, even or especially in adversity. Meanwhile, Christian theologians were trailblazing new practices and cementing old ones. Some devout believers like Antony, right here, and the Desert Fathers, right here, began early Christian monasticism by leaving the comforts and confusion of life in the world for an exile of spiritual poverty in the wilderness. Theologians such as exegetical scholar Origen in from 185 to 254 century, shown in the 12th century illumination, right here, helped to formalize the New Testament canon, using the proximity of books authors to Christ as a standard for inclusion. By the late 3rd century, the collection of books that believers had been reading and referencing for 150 years was already recognizable as the New Testament. So y'all read that. By the late 3rd century, the collection of books that believers had been reading and referencing for 150 years was already recognizable as the New Testament. And that's the end of that read. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you all want, you can go to the website right here. The link will be in the bio, or you can rewatch the video. Whichever one you want to do. But this is an excerpt from this book right here, I believe. Christian History Magazine, number 144, Christian History and Images, 40th Anniversary Edition. And that's all that I got for you.